Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play cast brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I'm your host, Mike Byrne, aka magicman. This is episode 216, recorded on April 6th. You're watching it on the 7th or later. We're going to talk consoles, we're going to talk maybe our not-so-favorites, and we're going to talk about a bad breakup and what it means for the future of the relationship between players in the game. Oh, look at that. It's like I know what I'm doing when I say things like that. It's almost. And joining us with the sarcastic sigh you already heard, Mr. Zach Sharps. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. Stayed up a bit too late because of Last Man Standing, but I'm okay. I'm okay.
What? Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
We'll talk about
after
that
we
later.
introduce Jason Winter.
Like, you're my favorite.
Aw, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, after Q.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
And Spunkify.
So you were playing... Dick! So you were playing Last Man Standing?
Yeah.
Really?
I watched... Yeah, I played PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I didn't think it hit my minimum, as in running at 60 frames per second with my Beast rig. So I uninstalled that, refunded it. We'll buy it once it gets performance patches. And then I saw Troy's first look, and I was like, this actually looks somewhat tolerable. It definitely looks better than H1Z1, because that game's horrible. Right. And so I booted it up, and I couldn't stop playing it, because it's at least fun. I mean, it's not like the best thing ever, but it's fun.
I've been meaning to jump into that. We'll have to do a duo or something.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, see, and I enjoyed Troy's first look. There were some performance issues with the game, obviously, and hopefully that stuff will get worked out.
I feel like that was Troy's rig, because I was running at 100 frames per second.
And we've seen other people commenting about some frame rate issues here and there, but it wasn't game breaking or anything by any stretch of the imagination. It was fine. But yeah, I don't even know if I should go into this. Let's click the news bump and talk about it, even though it's not on the notes. So I purposely, normally we do, like, if we do a first look or a couple first looks, we do a first look review type thing. And I didn't put Last Man Standing on here because I didn't think there'd be a ton of reason to, a ton of review to talk about it. It is what it is. It's a battle royale type shooter game. Go in there, shoot some people, area gets smaller. Okay. I'm like actually stunned that you enjoyed this one, Zach. I really am, and not because I'm disparaging the game or anything about it, but this is free reign entertainment, right?
Yeah, I fully know that. That's why I'm not giving them money.
Sergei
I mean,
Titov,
yeah.
Involved but not involved, and Romero's Aftermath, and Sergei
Shattered
not
Skies
involved but kind of involved but not involved. I don't know. It's just I can't jump into it. It's not my type of game in general, so I'm not missing much, right, Jason? I mean, it's just not something that Jason would see online and say, "Oh, hey, this is right up Mike's alley. Let me send him a tweet." It's not that type of game.
That's why I offered to do the first look, but then you said you were taking care of it, so I was like,
yeah, I had already had Troy assigned to it mid last week, and so by the time you said, "Hey, I'll take a look at it," it was already assigned.
Sure.
But yeah, and I didn't take a look at it, not because I didn't want to do the first look. I don't care. I'll play games that I know I'm not going to enjoy just for the first look, because that's more informative than sitting back for enjoyment. But he's just better at shooters than I am. I mean, he's not terribly great. He'll tell you
I've seen you play, so
but he's just better at shooters than I am, and I feel it gives a more accurate, or at least a more fair representation of what a typical shooter player that isn't as not skilled at them as I am. I'll do the MMORPGs and that stuff. But yeah, I'm surprised that you were digging it as much as you've been talking about. Why? What? You got H1Z1. You got all these other games that fit this arena, and H1Z1 admittedly, whatever. But what drew you in with Last Man Standing so much, Zach?
So with PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, the reason why I enjoyed that game and saw so much potential is because it's third person, it's very tactical based, the gunplay is pretty solid, there's a little bit of things that they can fix, which they've already mentioned they're going to be fixing, And so when I looked at Last Man Standing, after already playing H1Z1 and seeing the gunplay is still atrocious, I was like, okay, well, this shooting is all right. You know, it definitely is very sort of War Z-ish rough and really not that great, but it's at least better than H1Z1, at least from my visual impressions. So I downloaded the game, and I was right. It plays fine. The frame rate is fine, except for if you're right next to the force field that's coming in, that's when your frame rate will dip. But that's pretty much all that causes frame rate dip, at least from my end with a GTX 1080 with the i7 4770K processor and so on and so forth at 1440p.
Yeah,
but
so you're overkilling the hell out of the software anyway.
And that's why I have the minimum of you have to run at 60 FPS even if you're in early access. On my rig, it's inexcusable. So that's why I got rid of PlayerUnknown Battleground. But Last Man Standing, I was surprised because the map is large enough. The only thing I really don't like is the fact that it randomly spawns you. You have literally no choice in where you spawn, where in H1Z1, you sort of parachute in and you can sort of choose based off of where you parachute in at, you know, what direction you go. With PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, you get to choose where you eject at and then sort of skydive to. This one, you're literally just placed in the world and you have no choice whatsoever. There's weapons everywhere, which kind of makes it feel like it's literally just a battleground rather than somewhat of a survivalist environment where you have to actually hunt for these things. Every single tent, every single building has a ton of guns, which is not the same case for like H1Z1 or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. So that's kind of an issue. But I mean, even with the free-to-play model, it doesn't seem like there's anything of issue in it. You get chests as you play the game, and I was able to achieve 7th place out of like 70 people or something like that with having no knowledge of the game whatsoever. So the core fundamentals of the Battle Royale system is in effect, and it's done pretty well. And there's some issues, of course, and I would never give them money because of their previous works, but it's still better than H1Z1, which is a paid game, and this is free to play. So
you're going to be competing then for their monthly cash prizes, right?
No. Although I did see that I'm like rank 400 or something like that. So if I play like 3 more games, I'll probably be in elite tier, which I don't understand why that's the case because I don't feel like I'm that great at the game, but it is what it is.
Don't sell yourself short, man.
Yeah, Zach, when you win 10K, just remember, you know, shell out to Uncle Jason and Uncle Mike a couple of bucks. Jason, you, way back when H1Z1 was first a thing, you enjoyed those types of games, jumped into H1Z1 pretty early. Now, were you more after the kind of the PvE sandboxy side of it, where you just occasionally get killed, or were you more looking for this type of battle royale gameplay, and does Last Man Standing do it for you, as far as what you've seen so far?
I was more into the survival aspect of that. I put a lot more hours into that part of H1Z1. I played a little bit of the King of the Kill part. Didn't care for it as much, but between a little bit of that and then having watched a lot of people, every streamer I watch is doing like a PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds now, so I've been watching that for weeks. So yeah, I'm really watching that, finding it pretty good looking. Like I said, I was gonna jump into this, then you said no, you got rid of the thing, and then I was like, oh well, I guess it's by Sergey's team or whatever. So I'll wait on it a bit, but now Zach's saying good things about it, so I'm probably gonna jump in at some point, see how it plays, and same thing. I'm definitely not gonna spend money on it, but if it's something. If it plays pretty well, if it's free and it's kind of fun, I'll give it a shot and see. Apparently, you don't have to have any skill to rank up, so I should be all right.
and to clear up the whole Sergey Titov free reign entertainment thing, just to make sure that we are expressly clear on this show, I don't believe Sergey himself, or at least have any knowledge of Sergey himself having anything to do with this particular title. And in talking with Free Reign on previous titles that I've covered, such as Romero's Aftermath, although Sergey Titov may be involved with that company, he wasn't involved with the game's development and monetization and things like that. So to be fair, I mean, Sergey may never even have seen it, right? I mean, it could be he's that far removed from the day-to-day or the particular operations within Free Reign Entertainment that he very possibly could never have seen the game. I don't think that's likely, but it's possible.
He might have played it once or twice.
For me, though, as a consumer, just the association is enough for me to not want to touch it. And I'm sorry if that's like overreacting a bit.
It's not.
But just the association is enough for me to not really want to touch products from a particular company. Zach, you say it's not. I'm not being overreactive, silly on this one.
We both know that any sort of potential endorsement sort of furthers a potential path that a developer takes. And no matter how small it is, so I can definitely understand why you just simply playing it is enough of an endorsement of it for you not to want to do it. For me, it's all about the money. So as long as I don't spend money, I don't feel like I'm endorsing it that much. So
that's fair. Yeah. All right, so let's get to the topics we actually set up here to talk about. And hey, you know, if I'm being ridiculous, YouTubers, let me know. I know some of you are probably with me on this. Some of you think I may be overreacting, and it was so many years ago, but it really wasn't. Just my opinion for what it's worth. And Free Reign, I love the guys and gals I've talked to there. It has nothing to do with you guys as the developers. It's just I can't get past the association. So let's chat about free-to-play in a different aspect, something we don't normally talk about besides just saying, hey, this is coming out. I got right now on the PlayStation 4 behind me, I have Neverwinter fired up. We're seeing over the last 6 months or so a lot of our more well-known and some newer ones, free-to-play MMOs and free-to-play games in general, gravitating towards consoles, which we've been talking about for years, right, Jason? Ever since Game Breaker and before that, we were talking about the next logical thing is the consoles. Who's going to do it first? How are they going to do it? Is it going to be implemented well? We've been talking about it for years, but now we're finally, I think, really starting to see the genesis of a fully fledged free-to-play community, particularly on the MMORPG side, in and on your consoles, both PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. So I wanted to take a few minutes here and kind of go round table here. We've got Marvel Heroes. Just announced that Marvel Heroes Omega is going to come out for the PlayStation 4. So the first commenter on that one said, that's why we haven't gotten updates in forever.
Didn't they have the biggest update ever?
Yeah, the biggest update ever, not too long ago.
Biggest update ever.
Zach had a lot to say about that one on a previous show. We got the announcement that Terra, the action combat MMORPG, is heading towards consoles as well. Skyforge, which is currently in early access on PlayStation 4 and launches on April 11th. That's fired up behind me too. I've been playing some of that. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And the list goes on and on and on and on. We're seeing a lot more of it. So let's get your opinions. Jason, we'll start with you first since I know you're not a console gamer. Let's get your perspective maybe on, is this good for the business? Is this free-to-play is dying, so they're just reaching out and latching on to any customers they potentially can to hang on for as long as they can? What's going on from your perspective, maybe more on a business side of these things?
Well, first of all, I'm moving at the end of the month. The house I'm moving to, they have a PlayStation 4, so I might actually get into a little bit of stuff there at some point. So that said, I'm not sure.
I thought you were going to say they had an N64.
Oh, it's... Yeah, I'll play World of Warcraft on the N64.
Enjoy your GoldenEye.
Yeah, sure, exactly. But yeah, I mean, no, first, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's perfectly fine for them to try to branch out and get more of that audience, especially a lot of the games being, you know, like I said, something like World of Warcraft maybe it doesn't work so great on a console. But when you have the simpler games with the smaller hotbar, the sort of thing that you can do on a console controller, as opposed to the things with 30 buttons or so, making it a lot tougher. I think it's pretty good to have that sort of experience on a console, especially the more action-based stuff, which again, it seems like more of a natural fit for consoles. So games like Terra, games like Neverwinter, stuff like that, they make sense. And then the MMO-ish type stuff, gigantic stuff like that, being on consoles, more action combat, more shootery type stuff. Now that MMOs have a lot more of that stuff, as opposed to the traditional tab target kind of thing that they were in the past, I think it's only natural for them to migrate over to consoles, try to get that extra kind of audience. The only thing that I kind of think is kind of bad, not in the sense of it being bad they're going to consoles, but you wonder how much of that design process was in place from the start, saying we're going to go to consoles eventually, so we need to simplify our control system, or we need to have something a little more action-based as opposed to a tab target kind of thing. How much console design over the past, or how much MMO design over the past few years has been influenced by that kind of forward thinking that we're going to go to console eventually. So we need to change up how we make the PC release. People talk about that with, with non MMOs for a long time, but now that sort of thing has creeped into MMOs, and probably doesn't sit well with at least a few of the more hardcore fans who want to have that level of complexity and that level of old school gameplay that they were more used to in the old PC days.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair point. Extremely fair point. And we're not espousing here that MMOs or even free-to-play games as a whole are totally new to consoles or anything.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, Final Fantasy XI and EverQuest Online Adventures were already in the console space years and years and years ago. We've seen free-to-play games themselves. But I think we're kind of seeing this culmination in the last 6 months to a year of a lot of currently AAA titles now dropping themselves on the consoles. But to your point, to add on to one of your points, though, Jason, it does come with a potential future drawback, right? Because, like it or not, it is limiting on what you can do with your game going forward. And Final Fantasy XIV would be a great example currently. When Stormblood comes out in a few months here, PlayStation 3 support is being dropped, because from the initial launch of A Realm Reborn on, a lot of things that Yoshi P and team wanted to do, and players were saying, why don't you do this? Why can't you do this? This feature sucks. We would really like it to work this way. The answer was it couldn't for technical reasons, and it boiled down to it's because we're still supporting the PlayStation 3 that some of these things cannot be done in-game. And so when you go to consoles, great, but you kind of really got to look ahead and say, all right, when are we going to get there on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One? And how close to that is the Xbox 2 and the PlayStation 5 going to be behind it, and does that limit us? So there's a lot, and you mark my words, Secret World Legends is going to consoles. It is absolutely going to consoles. In my book, and this probably isn't even that big a prediction, in my book that is already on the list. It was on the list since they had this idea. The Park is already there, isn't it? Conan Exiles is going there. Secret World Legends is going to go there too. But don't get me started about Funcom right now. I'm looking at you, Funcom. Zach, do you do some console free-to-play and MMORPGing, or are you strictly PC guy?
Pretty much strictly PC. I mean, I own a PlayStation 4 Pro, but when it comes down to it, I just rather play it on the better platform, which is PC, because I have way better hardware than any console will ever really bring out, and I will continue to upgrade it, so that is always the case. And so when I look at consoles and MMOs, it's good in the sense that it's going to give them a better influx of cash in terms of if the game was somewhat petering on, the PC, and then it goes to consoles, they're going to get a lot more cash from that, and it's going to allow them to maybe further the development of the game. However, to Jason's point, there's also the trade-off of every single one of those games, as a result, is going to be more simplistic because you only have so many possible keybinds on a controller, where on a keyboard, it's way higher in terms of the amount of keybinds that you have. So that, for me, is a trade-off that I don't like, because I do like a more complex MMO. But this whole sort of console MMO sort of explosion is pretty much basically sort of like what World of Warcraft did to the MMO industry when it initially launched. It made it a lot more mainstream, and that's sort of something we're seeing on consoles, where even some games that previously were not really influenced by the MMO genre are now being influenced by the MMO genre, which is why we're seeing a lot of co-op games released that are semi-hybrid MMOs, like The Division, but not fully MMOs, because they still want to sort of have that more honed-in experience. So it's good and bad. Would I just rather it be what it was before in the past, of course, because I'm more hardcore. I want more of a in-depth experience, but I do see the monetary benefit there for the companies, and as a result, a more prolonged lifespan for the particular games that are taking this opportunity.
So a couple of points that you guys have made. I think you can still have a more in-depth MMORPG on consoles. it just really has to be well thought out control scheme wise. Like, I think if and you could do this on the PC, if you play Final Fantasy XIV with a controller, I think you'd actually be pretty surprised at how well it works. Yeah, it's definitely easier with a keyboard and mouse if you're used to it, but if you've never keyboard and moused it and you just pick up the controller, having 3 hotbars or 2 hotbars worth of abilities, it's actually pretty easy to use the controller. So the intelligent design has to definitely be there. And maybe that's a little harder to do or a little harder to think out, fine. But I'm also finding that in my experience, and I've been playing, and this is on console, all of these games, by the way, I have played on PC either when they launched or for long periods of time after they launched or whatever. Neverwinter, Skyforge, all of Trove, you know, all these different games that I'm going to mention here, they are all things I have played on PC, right? And have leveled up characters and stuff. But I've checked out Neverwinter on the PlayStation 4. I prefer it on the PlayStation 4. And I'm going to get into why I think this is on a couple of these and get your opinion on these in a second. Skyforge, Jason, I prefer it on the PlayStation 4. They have good control schemes. They feel more comfortable. And yes, the resolution is not what I would get out of my 980 Ti's, 2 of them in SLI and everything that I have on the PC. I'm with you, Zach. I'm with you 100%. Final Fantasy XIV, although I own it for both PC and for consoles, I play it on the PC. You know, there's something about it, and I haven't been able to put my finger on it until recently that I think it is. There's certain games that are coming out for the consoles that I really did not enjoy on the PC, but I will sit there for hours and play them on the console. And I think it all comes down, Jason, for me at least, to social interaction. Not only do these games feel better on the consoles control-wise, which I'm sure certainly helps, but these are the types of games that I'm not sitting there chatting with a bunch of friends while I'm playing. They're just me laying back on the bed or on the couch doing my thing and hitting the up button for /wave as I run by somebody because they /waved to me. So I'm having more fun with their control schemes in a more relaxed environment, and I don't feel like I need to be at the keyboard because I'm not socially interacting with a lot of people, which is kind of ironic for an MMORPG now that I think about it. And maybe that's just a personal thing, but, you know, Skyforge I would never play on the PC. And I'm not going to play it a ton on the PlayStation 4. I'm just not that into the game. But I would play it a hell of a lot more on the consoles, and comfort factor. I mean, Skyforge is an example, Zach, of one that just feels like it was made for the consoles as soon as I started playing it. I know. It feels like it was just made for the PlayStation 4 as soon as I started playing it. So why are you cringing?
Because you could play with the exact same control scheme on the PC with higher frame rate, higher resolution.
It doesn't feel as crisp. And here's the thing, though. Hear me out on this one, because I'm serious. And you controller aficionados, please chime in and tell me here. Terra is going to play better controller scheme-wise. I don't know overall-wise, but from a control standpoint, it will feel tighter and more comfortable playing it on the console because they have developed it specifically for the controller. And even though the game supports controllers, it is loose. It doesn't feel great to me. And I cannot be the only one that thinks that. Just because your game supports a controller on the PC does not mean that it does it very, very, very well, where when you have to go to consoles and have to make everything feel comfortable on that little control pad, there's more of an emphasis on tighter, more solid controls from a controller perspective. I can't be the only one on this one, Zach. I can't be. Zach,
I mean, in some cases, I get what you're saying, but literally Final Fantasy XIV, another example you brought up, and also Skyforge literally have the same exact interfaces as they do on console, as they do on PC, if you enable gamepad.
No, and on Final Fantasy XIV, I would totally agree with you. Skyforge for the PC was controller. If you don't feel like controller support for the PC version was an afterthought, then I don't know how to help you, brother. It feels clunky. It feels clunky.
It doesn't to me. I've literally looked at both the interfaces. It looks completely fine. The interface is the exact same. And even on the consoles, I've had one of my friends named Jordan who works for IGN, even state that the interface on consoles is somewhat half-assed in the sense that some stuff's cut off, some stuff isn't accessible. So both.
Well, you're talking cosmetically, not a control scheme, though. I mean, yeah,
and the control scheme's the exact same. I would argue even somewhat more responsive because you don't have the 30 frames per second, you have 60, and you don't have the fact that you're held back by the console's performance in other ways as well. So, I mean, I honestly don't see that in the examples that you at least provided. But
Jason,
in like Terra doesn't have that particular interface. So unless they add that in later on where it's way more controller supported, then yeah, you're definitely going to be right where Terra on the consoles will be a lot better with gamepad than it is on the PC. But I have a feeling they'll probably patch that in, just like with Final Fantasy, which is a game that I played solely with the controller. I never played it with keyboard and mouse, and I had no issues whatsoever. Same with DC Universe Online, and same thing once I found out with Skyforge with controller as well. So
here's my counter argument, though. You keep throwing Final Fantasy 14 in my face. Final Fantasy 14 was developed at launch to be on consoles, therefore control scheme from a controller was a and having a solid one was a necessity, not a hey, by the way, we support controllers. So I'm going to use Final Fantasy on my side of this, not your side. But Jason, break the tie. You don't care, do you?
I don't play any of these games on console. I don't know how they feel. Don't look at me. I mean, the only thing that I think I would like, that I would prefer more on a console, I might think that I prefer more on a console, and I see this especially when we talk about Marvel Heroes and all the talk I've done with the guys from Path of Exile, is ARPGs. I feel like those would feel better to me on a console, having the 360-degree movement on your pad. They only have 5 or 6 buttons, so that works out pretty easily.
Yeah, that's another one, Path of Exile.
That does seem like the sort of thing I would prefer on console. Actual MMOs with like the 3D thing or the tab target or even action combat, I just think I prefer that on a mouse and keyboard.
All right. I didn't say I preferred the controller. I just said it's tighter when you play it on the consoles, and Zach says I'm an idiot. But
that's where I'm so triggered, because I actually prefer these games on a controller, on the PC, and for very good reasons. So
you're...
and yes,
what the hell are you then? You're PC Master Race asterisk console controller.
that's what the PC Master Race is all about, though, is the option to be able to do that. And I gotta say one thing. Yes, I agree with you that if a game is developed with a controller in mind, not a console, a controller, then yes, it's obviously going to be better than a game that it's an afterthought. But I don't think that has to do anything with the consoles. It has to do with developing for a particular control scheme, and that's the important piece.
No, and I agree with you.
And I'm on console, it automatically is better because consoles only have one control scheme.
Whoa. I am not saying that just because automatically it's on a console, it's better. I am saying that, to me, after playing Neverwinter and Skyforge, games that were clearly developed for a mouse and a keyboard on a PC. By the way, you could throw a controller in if you want. We did enable this stuff. You're right. I so maybe we're agreeing here. We're just misunderstanding each other. I am not saying that because it's for a console, it feels better. I'm saying that because they specifically went out and developed control schemes for the console application, they feel tighter that way. To me, games like Skyforge and Neverwinter that didn't have to do that as part of what their core launch was going to be, those controls, while they're loose, they were a little flimsy for me. And I don't, whatever. And they feel tighter and more relaxed on the console simply because, not because it's on the console, but because they had to develop for a console controller. So maybe we're saying the same thing. I don't know.
I'm going to reach my hand out to you. If you change console for a controller, I will 100% agree with you.
That's what I just said.
But you said it developed it for console, though. You've been saying for console.
They said that I am being specific to Neverwinter and Skyforge. That the only reason they fine-tuned their control scheme for controllers at all was because they developed for consoles. In those cases, yes, their console development is what led to a better controller control scheme. Had they done that from the onset, I would be saying they developed specifically for a controller and thus have very tight controls. Yes.
Okay.
Fuck.
Okay. We can come to agreement. All right.
Dang it,
I more agree with you now than I did at the beginning.
I hate you.
So
since we're all angry and Jason's bored, let's talk about, we talk often about our favorite MMOs or something a game does that we really like and wish a different game would bring in and things like that. So since we're already riled up, some of us here, let's talk about the worst free-to-play MMOs you've ever played, or some of the worst features in a game, a free-to-play game that you've, and Jason, obviously we know inventory, so we'll skip that for you. If you do shitty inventory, we can skip
I even left out winning putt. I'm even not going to bring that up.
All right, so Jason, we'll start with you. Go ahead. What do you hate game-wise? And just so everybody else knows where this came from us talking behind the scenes about our next top 5 list, which will be coming out shortly, about free-to-play MMO first looks that damn near killed us for various reasons, one of them being terribly bad games. So, Jason, what do you got for us?
Well, I actually, speaking of which, I made a top 5 list, if that works for you.
All right, go for it.
So first of all, the 2 games are kind of on the same category, both APB Reloaded and Triad Wars. Like, someone just make a goddamn GTA online MMO or something, more than the actual GTA online game. Right. So I don't want to pay $60 for that. Whatever. Make something just like that, and let us go around and jack cars and shoot each other and run each other over. Doesn't even have to have missions in a very strict kind of sense. Just let us do that stuff.
So then what's your problem with Reloaded? Like, I get your problems with the initial APB, but what about Reloaded? That seems to fill that niche.
Well, but it also has that strict mission thing where you can't actually fight someone unless you're on a mission with them. You get matched up against the same guys over and over and over, and either you dominate them or they dominate you. And like I said, the pay-to-win aspect is crappy.
And Triad Wars was just awful. Oh.
Yeah, Triad Wars just... it didn't know what they were doing.
All right.
Next on my list, I have Magic Duels Origins, which I played for like 2 weeks, and I was just like, Magic is a good game in the real world. It just doesn't translate over that well to electronic. I know a lot of people play the Magic online, all the various versions and so on, but after you played whatever, Hearthstone or Eternal or Spellweaver or Elder Scrolls Legends, whatever, those games are just so smooth, so well designed for an actual computer. Magic wasn't made with that in mind. You got the interrupt timing, you got this and that and the other thing. It's just, I just can't stand it. I could not keep playing that. And speaking of card games, Might and Magic Duel of Champions, which after winning putt had the single thing that made me want to quit more than any other free-to-play game.
Oh no! And
that was this. They had the thing where if you have, I don't remember what the limit was. Let's say it was 3 cards per deck, 3 copies of a card per deck. If I had like 3 copies of a card and I put them into one deck, I couldn't put that into a different deck. And their reasoning was, we wanted to make it like an authentic CCG experience. The actual reasoning was, we want to milk you for as much money as possible to buy more cards.
Oh, wow.
But that's not what they told me. When I directly questioned them about that, they said they wanted the authentic experience.
So in other words, if you only had 3 physical cards in your hand, you couldn't make 2 decks if you put all 3 of your physical cards in one deck.
Well, not physical. Yeah, you get the idea.
Wow.
So yeah, that was awful. But then my number one I put on my list probably is Firefall, which I tried multiple times. And every time I tried, they changed the rules on me. When I finally got into it, when it launched, I had some bug in like the first 15 minutes that wouldn't let me progress. I had to restart the game. I can never get into... I'm bad at three-dimensional... The flying around and shit, having to do that and also shoot at stuff. And then you just toss in all the other crap the Firefall has done. I just closed the door on that so long ago and never back. So,
are you going to try Ember?
Mark Kern is kind of like your Sergei Titov.
Dude. Oh, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. You also, I want to bring this up. You also hate that particular font.
The font, the thin little crappy font you see in all the Asian games, and they put in, especially if they put in like their life totals.
He hates that font.
That
as soon as he sees a screenshot, I'm getting Skype messages. Oh, it's got that font.
Steel Ocean had that. I had to play that, and I was like, I don't want to see my hit points with that crappy little font.
What about you, Zach?
Yeah, so one of the things that I despise is when a developer pretty much just copy pastes from one game to another. And one of the games I think is the worst offender was Algernon, a really old WoW clone that I played just randomly. I was like, you know, my WoW subscription's up. This looks somewhat similar. How similar is it though? It is literally trying to be World of Warcraft so hard that the interfaces, the HP bars, pretty much everything that WoW does interface-wise, Algernon tries to do to some degree. And even graphics-wise, there's certain things that are completely wrong with it. Like when I played it, the water didn't even have physics. You were just swimming in an ocean that didn't move whatsoever, and it looked horrible. So everything about that game was just horrible, and it was a complete direct copy-paste of a game that it was trying to be so hard that it missed the mark because it just had no passion whatsoever in it, and it was just awful, completely awful.
So I'm going to stay away from games because I don't want that to necessarily spoil the top 5 for me list of top 5 video we're going to be putting out here soon. But there are a couple things in game that just really irritate the hell out of me. We've talked about one, autopathing. I hate autopathing. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Which is dumb of me to hate, right? Because it's the difference between following a mark on a mini-map and just clicking it and having you walk to it. Either way, I know where the damn thing is. I don't have to look for anything in MMOs anymore, now that I think about it. Those days are gone for most MMOs. Of actually having to look for something. It's amazing. Why would you do that? But autopathing just gets it gets right under my skin. It's, I don't know why. I don't know why. And the worst of it was Age of Wushu. Age of Wushu's autopathing drove me bonkers. Not only was it autopathing to begin with, but at least initially it was awful autopathing. And there was another game I played not too long ago, maybe in the last year and a half, that did that too. The autopathing was so bad that it got caught on everything in the environment. I mean, everything got you stuck in the environment. I can't remember what game it was.
Revelation Online had that issue.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with staircases.
Yeah. Well, Revelation Online has another thing that bugs me, where they try to overuse... what's the way to word this? They try to overuse physics a little bit. And I'm not talking about, like, boob bounce and stuff like that, whatever. I'm talking about that stupid run that they do in Revelation Online. I can't stand that. And even when you're on a mount, and yeah, I know you can disable it and everything, but it's stupid where your character runs and does this and is running on a straight diagonal line. Not they're leaning because they're going to turn and, okay, you know, that momentum kind of look. They're like that. Running. Yeah. Oh, God, I hate that type of stuff. Just feels lazy to me. Feels lazy to me. Let us know what you hate in MMOs down in the comments. And before we slide over to the weekly bombs here, because we are running a little late, Jason, I want to throw this over to you real quickly, since out of the three of us, you have the most experience here. Guild Wars 2 and the ESL, the Esports League, Esports League, ESL, are parting ways. Guild Wars 2 no longer part of the docket. What does this mean? Why? And is this good or bad for the game ultimately when it comes down to the end?
Okay, so I went to a friend of mine, Jebro. He's one of the actually authorized shoutcasters for Guild Wars 2, and I actually grabbed him like about 2 hours ago while he was in a stream casting the last event for ESL and Guild Wars 2. So I tried to get his opinion on it and so on, and he got a little bit into it because he was busy trying to do that. So basically he told me it's not really that big of a deal because the ESL events were not that big to begin with. It was more about visibility, and even then it had come down to the point where they weren't getting a whole lot of people for the events anyway. So, the actual formal breaking of this agreement is not something that's, some sort of horrible thing that's, now there's no more esports events or anything like that. There's still going to be. Guild Wars 2 will just put them on themselves, or various fans will put things on. So it's really not going to be that big of a deal. Just mostly going to affect the visibility a little bit. But like I said, it wasn't there a whole lot to begin with. So, not really a huge deal in the grand scheme of things.
Even though ArenaNet employees in the past have said how vitally important reaching the esports scene was for the game. And if you weren't even considering that, then why even develop the game, right? All right, well, hey, maybe that's good news then. Let's slide over to the weekly bombs. Where's the bump there? There it is. Couldn't find the damn thing. All right, Zach, we already kind of spoiled yours a little bit, so go first.
Yeah, I'm going to give a dub bomb to Last Man Standing just because I went in with very low expectations like I do every Battle Royale game, and it exceeded it. So,
Well, there you go. I'm going to give an A-bomb here to Club Penguin shutting down. It's sad. I didn't personally play it. I was a little older than the game was targeted for when it came out. But
just a little.
I do remember paying for that for all 3 of my kids when they were younger. Luckily, I didn't have to pay for them all at once. They kind of grew into it as the other one was too old for it. So it's got some fond memories for me there. Go ahead, Jason.
They got their Club Penguin hand-me-downs.
They did.
I'm going to give a dub bomb to a blind Street Fighter V player.
What?
Believe it or not, who competed in the tournament, actually won a match.
Wow.
But he's a Dutch player named Sven. Apparently, he really goes by sound in the matches. He says, I play with a headset on so I can hear left and right what's going on. When a character's kicking and punching, they make sounds in different ways. You have to study the sounds for a long time. So that's how he plays. He memorizes the sounds. He compares it to sighted players being able to just detect like a little bit of a movement and being able to react to that. He does the same thing with sound.
Wow.
And now, however, I have to give an A-bomb, or at least a sympathy bomb, to the guy he beat in the tournament. How would that feel to be in a Street Fighter V tournament? You lose to the blind guy.
Yeah. I remember years and years and years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, being with MMO Bomb the first time there, where we briefly did an interview show where we interviewed people from the community. And I interviewed a gentleman who was blind and played a lot of League of Legends at a very competitive level. So amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. From the viewers, Elusive X Treasure, I have so many questions about both news pieces from last week, the Secret World / Secret World Legends. Ironically, I just got an email, Jason.
Okay.
Yeah, finally got my interview questions answered. Now I'll go in and see that all of them are like, we're not ready to talk about this yet. That's, of course, exactly what's going to happen. I'm calling it now. So we were talking about the Secret World Legends, and Heroes of the Storm. So Elusive X Treasure, I have so many questions about both news pieces. What's going to happen to my master skins? I'm using them on at least 4 characters in HOTS. As for the Secret World, as long as I can still run around with my little group and not just in dungeons for the most part, I'm okay with it. But I really want to know if that's something I'm able to do. I'm with Jason on the combat thing. Action combat really reduces my will to play the game. Sorry, Elusive, we do have at least confirmation at this point that it is an action combat type game. I really wish they would get those kinds of answers out there as they announce these things. So A-bomb to vague announcements. Dub-bomb, though, to Alice Reactor for some truly hilarious April Fool's Day patch notes. They were very funny. Yes, I finally tried it, and I'm hopelessly addicted. Hey, Zach, any idea on the Master Skins questions?
No, I mean, it's kind of like with the loot crates. They keep constantly changing things. Like, I think they recently announced that they'll be doing, like, master banners or something like that. Or master taunts, something master oriented, but I'm not sure if they're completely getting rid of the skins or if they're making it so they're cheaper and you can just buy them with shards. I'm not sure how that's all going to play out, but I don't know. We'll know once it actually launches, because by then they'll stop changing things every single week and actually commit to something. So
cool. Go ahead, take the next one.
Michelle Sanctuary says, Zach, I keep wondering how would be a game of Lord of the Rings made by BioWare and by Telltales. I would like to see Jason taking this comment if possible.
Well, I had Zach take the comment, but I'm going to let Jason answer. Because, Zach, you answered Michelle on YouTube. So
yeah.
If you want Zach's opinion, go check out last week's episode. What do you think, Jason, though, of a Lord of the Rings game made by BioWare / Telltale Games?
I'm not too familiar with Telltale stuff. I mean, I know they do Banner Saga and whatnot. BioWare, I played a lot more.
They do the Walking Dead episodic.
Yeah,
stuff.
That's right. I watched a little bit. I watched someone play a little bit of that the other day. And BioWare, I just finished Mass Effect 3 last night. I'm a little behind, just a little behind.
That's all right. Andromeda finally looks like an actual retail release, so you're not that far behind.
Right, exactly. I'll pick that up in another 5 years. I mean, I guess when I think if I wanted a Lord of the Rings game, I wouldn't want it to be like intensely story driven. I think I want it to be a little more freeform than that. I feel like, because there is a pretty good story in Lord of the Rings already, and I don't know how you would. I mean, I won't say I don't know how, because obviously there have been games that have told other stories in that world. they haven't always worked out that great, and I feel like that just isn't the sort of thing where I would want BioWare to really get into. I think I'd rather have BioWare either do their own thing, like with Mass Effect, or get into a place that has a lot more room for a lot more storytelling, like they've done with Star Wars. Even like a Star Trek game by BioWare, that would be pretty cool too. I could see getting into that. But Lord of the Rings, I think, just has that big story, and if you can't really duplicate that or have something run alongside it and have it be of the same level. So I don't really know that BioWare would be a good fit for that.
Go ahead, take the next one. Good answer. I like that.
Okay.
Answer.
All right. So Game Arts says, "You guys are awesome. Greetings from Germany."
Oh, all right. Shout out to Germany. Thank you. Alan M00, we all know game developers need to make money. Too often, we see cash shop items that change our appearance. The problem with this is that everyone can look just like you. I'd like to see a free-to-play MMORPG try something new. My suggestion would be to have some items available for purchase to everyone, but build on that. Let's say you join a raid to get better gear. The gear that drops might look neat, but maybe a new appearance opens up in the cash shop to you for either killing that boss or looting that gear piece. Perhaps the base item appearance is all black for a chest, for instance, but changes to have red or blue accents on that piece if you purchase the new look. Not everyone wants to look stupid like cash shop appearances like Terra has. Most would want to show the upgraded appearance to show off an achievement for killing a certain boss. I kind of like that, and I feel like a game that I've played not too long ago did this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So basically, gate the cash shop behind achievements in game, or at least parts of it. Yeah. That's actually kind of interesting on some level, but it's sort of like, hey, you just beat the big boss. Now give us money. So it's like, how did that go over really?
Go ahead, Zach.
Real True Toniness says, A-bomb for my A-bomb/rants of the week last week, making magicman cringe and horror at times and feel completely hopeless and sad by the end. I'm truly sorry for killing the mood of the show. I apologize.
No, never apologize for your opinion. We had a little bit of fun with it, but damn, it was...
It was vivid.
Wow, it painted a picture. Let's just say that. It painted a picture. Go ahead, Jason.
I'm actually really surprised at you, Zach, after the Pyar round controversy, being able to spell that name correctly. Say that name.
I'm focusing extra hard, okay?
I thought it'd be like Rialtrotaniness. Anyway. Exospoon X says, I like the secret world better. Email them, Jason. The very, very secret world. The even more secret world.
The even more secreter world. Luca Dorjak says, A-bombed Elder Scrolls Online and they're looking for group system. Feel as though it was made by an angry dog walking on a keyboard. When I party with my friend, he's a tank, so I can queue faster since I'm DPS. The game gets you in dungeon and then kicks you out 12 seconds later and gives you a 15-minute ban from the LFG. What the actual fuck? How do you not fix this? Dungeons in this game are 45 to 50% of all endgame, and yet you are making an expansion while you're looking for group system is as stable as Donald Trump's sanity. Get on this now. Wow, is it really that bad? I haven't done LFG in Elder Scrolls.
It is. Have you seen his Twitter?
I never had that issue, so I don't know.
Jason, you are too much. You are too much. All right, here. Do that, and go ahead, Zach.
Agent Nuki says, A-bomb to the viewers. No one mentioned Ragnarok Online and Tree of Savior's soundtrack for one of the best game soundtracks.
Oh, the viewers done been called out with an A-bomb.
Yep.
Agent Nuki causing some YouTube arguments coming up. Here it comes. Go ahead, Jason.
Shadow Wolf says, Q on the secret question on the secret. Well, not like Q, our person, but I have lifetime membership. Can I transfer to Legends?
You are going to get additional perks for having that lifetime membership, yes. And you'll be able to, just like other characters, also transfer over certain cosmetic items that you already have in the Secret World to Legends. So take a look. That is something that they did address in the FAQ. They weren't terribly detailed about it. And it is one of the questions in this interview that I haven't opened up yet that, who knows if there's an answer to. But there are certain things that you are going to get because you are a lifetime member of that Grandmaster thing, yeah. Adminion, I don't understand, quoting here, I don't understand why City of Heroes people are so angry that they can't play their game. Also quoting, I can still play the Secret World in its original form, but I'm pissed off about it. I think Adminion is quoting me there on 2 consecutive episodes. and pointing out the irony between the two statements. And if that's the way the first statement sounded, as if I just didn't understand why they're so angry, I don't think that's the way I came off. My question,
think so either.
My question with City of Heroes more was, I didn't play City of Heroes. What was so passion driving about this game that all these years later there's still this community that's very upset? I totally get people being upset when their game shuts down. We want your opinions. The question of the week last week. We wanted your opinions on the big topic. So what do you think about the changes to Heroes of the Storm and the Secret World? Snooze says, the Secret World bombed. The game couldn't sustain interest because it was ugly and clunky and bug-ridden and latency issues. The publishers were probably struggling to make a decent profit. My guess, they're losing money, and they have to do something drastic, or they're dead in the water. And you know what? I mean, that's pretty harsh the way it's worded, but I can't argue with it. That's probably the situation the game was in at this point all these years later. By the way, if we want to go into the consoles, because we're doing that with Conan Exiles, the game really isn't conducive to that in its form right now. What if we make it in a slightly different form and relaunch it on everything and go into consoles? And I could definitely see what they're trying to do here. Now we'll see if it works. Go ahead, Zach.
Pixelated Donkey says, I wonder if Secret World Legends is going to have a paywall. One character slot kind of tells me that this is what will happen. Also, where did the site for Secret World go? All I get is a redirect to the beta sign up.
Yep, it's gone. It's gone. And it's not on Steam anymore either. Gone. Gone.
They don't want you to play the Secret World.
Yeah, which is really weird because they make a point in the FAQ to tell you you can't play it on Steam anymore, so you'll have to get a direct download, but now they're like hiding the download. I don't know.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yami Kami says, question of the week, I don't get why they have to delete character progression. This is for Heroes of the Storm, I believe. I mean, is it really technically necessary to do all that shit? I don't buy it. Well, I'm not going to play it either way. Well, then it doesn't really matter what you think, does it?
Sorry, I was trying to... I knew I had a question in there, the one I sent to about Secret World having a paywall. I had a question about the number of character slots and if that meant are factions still going to be a thing. Why on earth would you sell character slots for this type of game, being a single player almost RPG? And I don't know if they actually answered that or not.
Just make them tune in later. Tune in next show for all the answers.
Some interesting things.
Gotta leave cliffhangers.
I'm really eager to see how they respond to some of your questions.
Yeah, so am I, and I can't read it without just totally spacing on this one right now. Where the hell were we?
Soul Card.
Soul Card. The story was the Secret World's strength. The combat was its weakness. A new combat system sounds like a good move. Sad that the MMO is going on life support, though. My impression is that it's fine if they're going for a clean break, because updating and fixing the Secret World would essentially just be making a whole new game anyway. Scaling the experience down to more co-op instead of MMO also makes sense in terms of the isolated and depowering aspects of a good suspenseful/horror experience, also conducive to consoles. All that said, none of what they've shown so far indicates it's worth making a new game over. Without a new engine that would indicate they're making a new game from the ground up, which we know it is not a new engine, it sounds more like they're just going to implement mechanical and UI tweaks that could have been patched into the MMO. I'm not even sure how they plan to market the new game to new players with such dated assets. Maybe they're going to zoom in the camera way out and turn the game into a Diablo Path of Exile type ARPG. Otherwise, it seems like only the people who'd even care about the new game are the people who already paid for the Secret World game. And I think that's a fair point right there at the end.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zach.
I think we skipped over Kale Rain, right?
Did we?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, take it.
Secret World Legends, for a moment, I thought it would be another card game. Nice to know it's not. If they fix the combat, it can be very cool. All the history was nice.
It's not the Elder Scrolls.
Not the Elder Scrolls.
I mean, with the previous comment, that would be kind of interesting if they zoomed out the camera and made it an asymmetric Secret World game.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think I would dig that.
But it's not. Jason!
I know. It's...
James Esparza says, while listening to this podcast, I was actually playing the Secret World. Maintenance mode or no maintenance mode, I'm going to unlock that Exorcist outfit, damn it. But all in all, I feel very ripped in half about the game. I also want it to be good, but 2 titles come to mind when I think about what they're doing: Star Wars Galaxies and Final Fantasy XIV.
Hey,
yeah, the difference is you could actually keep playing Galaxies after the NGE. So.
And one of those 2 worked out.
Yeah.
Elva One says, well, the closest situation to recent memory is what's happening in the Secret World is Skyforge with their Ascension patch that completely changed the game. Except they are leaving the original game intact for the fans and doing their experiment as a separate product, which I wish is what the Alids team would have done with Skyforge. Oh, and it still has the potential to not suck completely. Okay, that's the bar. Don't suck completely at this point, I guess.
Suck partially, that's okay.
Yeah, just partially.
Not completely.
Speaking of things that are going to cause YouTube arguments, like calling out the viewers there from one of our bombs from Agent Nuki, I'm going to put the question of the week. We're going to make it an MMO matchup time. Blade and Soul or Revelation Online? Why? And put it in the comments below.
Yes.
I knew Zach would love this question. Until next week, where can everybody find you, Zach?
Everyone can find me on Twitter at Zach Sharps.
Jason?
Find me on Twitter at Winter Informal, streaming twitch.tv/JasonWinter.
I'm Mike Byrne. You can follow me personally on Twitter at magicman1. Make sure you follow at MMO Bomb while you're there. Give us your questions, your answers to the question of the week, your weekly bombs, dub bomb for something good, A bomb for something bad in the comments below. And until next week, gang, stay safe. See you on the servers.